welcome to episode 235 of the Daily Fantasy Edge. My name is Adam Levitan. I am one of the analysts here at DraftKings. I'm the father of Jerry, the most beautiful beast in the world. And we're coming off of a Prove It week. Yes, that's right. A bunch of really impactful news came out after the salaries were released last week. And it really messed up the slate, to be honest. Created a situation where most people who were even remotely paying attention, even remotely trying, had Spencer Ware in cash. They had Eric Ebron because the Doyle news came out on Tuesday. They had Chris Godwin because the Deshaun Jackson news came out on Friday. So while I normally think that these situations are really good for me, I really do well in these kind of weeks. Our opponents still mess up in a really bad variety of ways. I even thought that this week went a little too far in terms of overlap. Basically the whole slate came down to which three running backs did you play out of Spencer Ware, Phillip Lindsay, Aaron Jones, Christian McCaffrey, Todd Gurley. I mean, they were all super close. They were all awesome plays for sure. And I mean, it's every week that I, and I guess everybody else, wishes that we could play 5 or 6 running backs. I ended up playing McCaffrey, Jones, Ware, as I didn't feel great about what was left at wide receiver if I played CMC and Gurley. But it is what it is. I know I want to take the best running back floor ceiling combos every week, like make that my priority over wide receiver. I thought that Aaron Jones had that, specifically at his price, but I was wrong. More on that in a little bit. Anyway, I think that this week is a good time to examine the current state of the games on DraftKings, right? So independent of results, I think if you didn't play Spencer Ware in cash, Eric Ebron, and at least one of Godwin or Adam Humphries, you were just like lighting money on fire, just like straight torching it. And yeah, I know that Kelsey went for 45, and I know that Ware only had 12 points or whatever. It doesn't matter. If you didn't play Ware, Ebron, and one of the Tampa Bay wideouts in cash, I mean, I just think that you were just absolutely lighting money on fire. So let's see how many people hate money. As we sit here pretty deep into the season, week 13, let's just see how many people hate money. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to look at Spencer Ware's ownership in single entry double ups. Not going to go through all the guys in all the different tournaments and cash games. But in the $2 single entry double up, Spencer Ware was 79% owned. So 20% of the field hates money. In the $5 single entry double up, 72% of the field played Spencer Ware. Even more, 27% of the field just despises money. In the $10 single entry double up, 83% of the field played Spencer Ware. All right, we're starting to get a little tougher. Only 17% of the people passed on money. $25 single entry double up, 83.3%, roughly the exact same as the $10 one. The $50 single entry double up. Okay, now we're starting to get into mid stakes. 87.8% of the field played Spencer Ware. And then in the $100 single entry double up, 89.7% of the field played Spencer Ware. Still, 10% of the people didn't. Just about enough to pay the rake. And I get it, right? I get that if you didn't play Spencer Ware and you had some other combo of those 5 running backs, you probably did even better. But, the whole concept of expected value is like all that matters. Even when you win money, you're actually losing, or even when, like the thing that Al brought up about, trying to bust my balls about playing roulette on the 3-man pod a couple weeks ago, or playing craps or whatever it was. Like, even if I win playing roulette or craps, I have this feeling in my stomach that's just like sick to my stomach that I gave the casino, I gave someone else plus EV over me. I just feel sick about it. So even if you win, you still lose, if that makes sense. So anyways, that's the way I feel about not playing Spencer Ware this week. Even if you won, you still lost. So yeah, I mean, 10% of the field not doing it in the $100 single entry double up, I think is a good sign for the games, at least, that there's still at least 10% of the field out there that, I mean, it's just stone not trying at all. I'd note that in the $100 single entry double up, Ebron was only 61%, and Travis Kelce was only 5.8%. So like 34% or something like that played a tight end other than those two. I'd also note Chris Godwin only 48%, Adam Humphries only 23%. So it is what it is. I'm not trying to say that the games are ridiculously soft. These percentages are for sure high. But what I'm saying is that even in extreme examples, and this past week was an extreme example with the amount of layup value that opened up, there are still some people out there who won't play it. So even if it's only 10% of the field, it's still out there. One quick note on a week like this with a ton of overlap, obviously there was a good chance that we needed to late swap in a lot of spots, head-to-heads, three-mans, whatever. Everyone had Spencer Ware at 4 p.m., so if you were down in some points to your opponent or opponents after the 1 p.m. games and only had Spencer Ware left, and they also had Spencer Ware most likely, you needed to pivot. Unfortunately, Todd Gurley just went on an absolute barrage. Unfortunately for me, Todd Gurley went on an absolute barrage late in his game, which changed the score of a lot of my head-to-heads very close to 4:05 p.m., which is when Spencer Ware locked. So I didn't get to them all. Congrats to anyone out there who had me blocked, and I didn't change Spencer Ware. But I probably would have gone Chris Conley anyways, so wouldn't have mattered. Conley had 11.5 points and Ware had 12.2. But you can see just how important it is to swap. I mean, yeah, it's unlikely that Conley outscores Ware. But if he does, it's just Yahtzee. I mean, you're stealing a win. And like if you were sharp enough to pivot to Dante Pettis, I mean, I wasn't, but if you were, and he goes for 32 points, well, like you win everything just because of a swap. Wanted to talk Tyreke Hill for a minute. And normally when I talk Tyreke Hill on the 3-man or on Twitter, I'm really just like trolling Peter or doing a bid or staying on brand or whatever. So let me give a more real take. So Tyreke Hill has scored fewer than 15 DraftKings points in 6 of his 12 games. It's not, it's bad, but it's not actually that bad for a wide receiver. Michael Thomas has been under 15 in 5 of his 12. Odell, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, they've been under 15 DK points in 4 of their 12. It just speaks to the fact that the range of outcomes for a wide receiver is always going to be super wide, way wider than a running back. So I sent a tweet on Monday morning about Tyreke, and of course, Team Watch the Games just loses their minds. Yes, I am aware that he just missed out barely on a couple bombs that would have changed everything. I'm also aware that those are very difficult to complete. And I get that he has the best quarterback for them, and he has this ridiculous talent, and he's really good at catching these bombs from Mahomes. It's still really, really hard. And, I also get, I think most importantly is that a target to Tyreke is worth way more than a target to any other receiver in the league. Like you can look up, like fantasy points per target or yards per target, et cetera, et cetera. All that said, 9,100 for a guy who has a realistic projection of 8 targets is just absurd. Absurd. I don't care who it is. If it's, like Superman, it doesn't matter. So yeah, when you're swinging for the fences in GPPs, you're playing optimally, then of course Tyreke makes sense. His ceiling is just wild. His ceiling is more than any other running back. I believe he's at 3 games of 40 plus DraftKings points this year. So crazy. But at 20% owned and 9,100 with a target projection of 8, you just have to realize what you're getting. Like you can't compare him to these CMC or Gurley types. Christian McCaffrey at least 13 points in every single game this year. Todd Gurley at least 20 in all but 1 game this year. For floor ceiling combo, taking both of those things into account, those guys in the same price range are always going to be better for cash, undoubtedly. So it's all I'm trying to say. Tyreke is obviously an amazing player in an amazing offense, an amazing spot. When he starts to get into this highest price wide receiver on the slate, higher price than Christian McCaffrey, same price as Todd Gurley, essentially, et cetera. You're asking for trouble. And then also, we have him at 20% owned. Even if he does go for a 40 ball, yeah, you have to have him, but it doesn't mean that you win the slate. So there's the Tyreke take. Hope that makes sense. I'm not sure it did. All right, let's get to the 4-man and the listeners strike again. Scary now. 2 in a row for the listeners. The Dirt got the win, beat me by 0.84 points. He did the right thing. What I should have done, played Gurley and CMC with Ware, ignored Aaron Jones. The thing with Aaron Jones is, well, you know what? Let me talk about this after. I'll finish with the Dirt's lineup. So how did he get to playing Gurley and CMC? And that was really the concern for me. How do you get the salary to play them both? Well, this is where he got weird. He played Jeff Driscoll at 4,500 and CJ Azoma at 3,400. Chiefs D, which I loved, obviously, Galladay, Humphreys, and Sanders at wide receiver. I would have rather saved money at wideout than go Driscoll Azoma, but it worked for Dirt, so congrats, man. Great win. As for me and Aaron Jones, I was relatively happy with the lineup. You know, I think it was really hard to see Aaron Jones' usage coming. I mean, Aaron Jones was seeing like 90% snap rate, touch rate, running back share rate, etc. over the previous 2 to 3 games, and then Mike McCarthy, just out of nowhere, just out of the stone blue, splits it right down the middle against the Cardinals with Jamal Williams. Loses the game. Gets fired. I mean, it's just insane. So it was hard to see it coming, but I guess when you have money on a guy who is dependent on Mike McCarthy, that's always the downside that we face. You know, at least he's gone now, thankfully. One other decision I wish I had back was Galladay versus Robert Woods. I mean, the entire plan, everybody's plan to stop the Lions is just stop Galladay. There's no other weapons. There's no Tate, no Marvin, no Carrion. Not even Michael Roberts was out. So, like, their weapons are among the worst in the league. And the Rams said it. I mean, the Rams came out before the game. We're like, we're going to stop Kenny Galladay, and then we win the game. And that's exactly what happened. You know, and then we had Robert Woods playing without Cooper Kupp in this really good matchup. Obviously, McVay. I want money on Sean McVay. You know, could have just easily gone down from Packers D to Chiefs D, loved Chiefs D, and gotten Woods over Galladay. You know, would have given me about 15 more points and made a huge, huge difference in the week. As for the other lineups in the format, Al went with Humphreys over Godwin, the 4 condom strategy, paid the price there. And Peter, of course, DFL, once again, took the air ball from Matt Lacoste. I could see how Ebron was a reasonable fade or a good fade in tournaments given his projected ownership. I thought in cash, given all the other value that was out there, Lacoste was not necessary. You know, like Peter used going down to Lacoste to get up to Adam Thielen, and then we saw how that went. So, yeah, didn't love it. The standings now are Adam 5 wins, the listeners 4 wins, Al 3, and Peter 1. The Week 13 Listener League was historic. 10,000 entries, the biggest listener league in the history of listener leagues, beyond a shadow of a doubt, created a rake-free prize pool of $50,000 on a $5 entry, 3-entry max. It's just pretty wild. Obviously, there was a lot of well-deserved excitement around it, filled easily on Sunday morning with almost no reminder tweets or anything like that. I know everyone now wants to hashtag make it even bigger. That is not in the cards for this week. The Week 14 Listener League is once again at 10,000 entries. Regardless, you know, it's still the best tournament on DraftKings by far. Rake-free, 3-entry max, optimal flat payouts, 24% of the field will at least double their money. So don't embarrass us by letting this thing overlay. Go to DK Playbook, find the logo for this podcast, go to the landing page, find the link. It's really not that hard. You can also just Google. Your whole goal, even on mobile, your whole goal is to get to DK Playbook. Go to the drop down on mobile, find the DFS Edge. You'll find the landing page. You'll find the link. The Week 13 Listener League went to Pacing Pete. Mahomes at 19%, Travis Kelce at 11%, Spencer Ware at 70%. Did not bring it back with anyone on Oakland, which turned out to be fine. Saquon and Christian McCaffrey, obviously huge ceilings on there due to the pass game. And, you know, Tariq Cohen also, like all these guys, when you have these ridiculous pass game roles, the ceiling on these running backs are incredible. Also, obviously, Godwin the God, 43%. Difference for Pacing Pete, the difference makers were Dante Pettis at 0.7% and Cortland Sutton at 3.4%. The 49ers obviously like Dante Pettis once Marquise Goodwin and Pierre Garçon are ruled out. We knew Dante Pettis was going to play almost every snap. I had major concerns about San Francisco going in there and just getting absolutely whitewashed. And that's kind of what happened, but all the garbage time led to Dante Pettis having a huge game and a massive difference maker. Cortland Sutton, we've talked about him all year, you know, awesome talent, good matchup, has not put it in the box score through 13 weeks or through 12 weeks or whatever it was. Finally put it together to some degree. I think he only had like 18 points, but put it together to some degree in Week 13 for Pacing Pete. In second place was Shani Fitz. He had Mahomes, Kelsey Ware also. Basically had to have that. Tariq Cohen, 2.3%. Obviously mentioned him already. The way he's used is just crazy. So sexy. Philip Lindsay, 24%. He had DJ Moore and Adam Thielen both disappoint, but Denver defense was really nice play. Driscoll, obviously shaky. Offensive line injuries for Cincinnati. The edge rushers for Denver are some of the best in the league, and only 8% on that Denver D. Nice lineup there from Shani Fitz. In third place was Lou Dog. Mahomes, Kelsey Ware, obviously. Add in Chiefs defense. Lindsey, Christian McCaffrey, Robert Woods, Chris Godwin. Almost a cash lineup, really, except for one pivot added in Kenny Stills at 0.8%. I mean, no Kenny Stills has the talent, has shown huge games with Ryan Tannehill in the past. So interesting play there from Lou Dog. I like it. Again, congrats to Pacing Pete. We will see you in the 4-man. We will see everyone else in the Week 14 10,000 entry listener league. Now it is time for everyone's favorite portion of the program. Producer Luke, hit the theme music. As always, thanks to everyone for the questions. We are going to do a 10-pack once again today. Question 1 comes from the Ryan King. He says, is there a way to make season-long fantasy football viable? I'm not really sure what you mean here, Ryan. I think season-long football is season-long fantasy football is really viable and really popular, maybe more so than before even. I think the right way to look at season-long fantasy football is it's really fun, right? And I mean, it is like playing with friends, talking trash on the bulletin board, on text chains, negotiating trades. All that stuff is like fun amongst friends. Like I'm sure many of you out there, I have a league with friends from high school and we don't talk too much anymore, but we have this fantasy football league that's been running since 1997. It's just a great way to stay in touch. It's fun. Now, if we're talking about trying to grind edges and make money, well, then I'd agree with you that season long isn't very viable. Even if you play high stakes, I don't know, there's probably 2K leagues out there and 5K buy-ins or whatever. Your projected hourly with all the time needed to focus on that is not going to be high, especially when you factor in how much variance and luck there is in season long. Way more than DFS. Season long, there's so much that goes about injuries and where you pick in a draft and suspensions, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, as a money-making venture, I don't think that season long is all that viable. If we're talking about real money, not a couple hundred or 1,000 or whatever, real money, it's not viable. But it's just pure fun. I still think season long is great, man. Question 2, I forgot the name here. I apologize, but the question is, ever have any fear that a Black Friday poker type scenario could occur in the DFS world and shut it all down? Not at all. Certainly not now. I mean, the poker situation was so different. Those were companies not operating in America, blatantly breaking U.S. law. The DFS companies today are operating in our country under American law, working with legislators, they have bills passed, they're paying taxes, etc. It's not really comparable, I don't think. Good news is that online poker is slowly, very slowly, but slowly coming back in the United States. I believe we're up to Delaware, Nevada, and New Jersey now that have online poker. I think Pennsylvania and some other states seem close. So it's coming, it's just taking a really long time. Question 3 comes from I Like DFS. He says, rank the top 3 wack Packers and discuss why Eric the actor is the undisputed king. Yeah, this is obviously a Howard Stern question. I liked Eric the actor, man. R.I.P. He was awesome. The way how serious he took everything while everyone else was busting his balls was really good. But I honestly don't think he would be in my top 3. I would go with Hank the Angry Drunken Dwarf, Wood Yee, and Evil David Letterman. Their bits are just so funny. If you're looking for something to do and you like this podcast, and to be honest, I've listened to and watched so much Stern in my life, it should be obvious how much influence he's had on me, but just trying to be super honest and do really dry humor on all the insanity of life, I think. But But anyways, if you like this podcast, I would recommend you just going to YouTube and Googling like Would Ye Stern or Evil Dave Stern. Like, you won't be disappointed. You could also look at Richard and Sal bits, like Richard and Sal Stern. You'll probably like those too. So, yeah. R.I.P. Eric the actor. Question 4 comes from Logan Grubbs. He says, hey, Adam, could you discuss your best strategies for choosing head-to-head opponents? You've mentioned creating contests close to lock early Sunday morning, but what's the GTO strategy for weeding out the sharks from the fish on an individual basis? Thanks. Yeah, I've talked about this before, but I keep getting this question and one similar to it a lot, so I figured I should hit it again. Basically, I think the best cash games on DraftKings, to me, are single entry double ups and head-to-heads. I think the multi-entry double ups are some of the worst. If you go back to episode 210, I think it was, I showed why with the scoring. But anyway, yeah, for head-to-head, I always recommend posting at low stakes rather than scooping. You know, post $1, $2, $5 games. There shouldn't be too many world-class players scooping at those stakes. It's just not worth the time. But if you think someone who is actually really good is scooping you, just block them. You know, and I'm not sure how many people know how to do this. Just on the desktop version of DraftKings, go to account information in the top right, click preferences on the next screen on the left, and you'll see a box for head-to-head settings. You just type the name of the user you want to block in there, and you won't play them in head-to-head ever again, or as long as they're in that box. So like you should be able to get a couple hundred in action if you want it at low stakes at $1, $2, and $5 just in head-to-head action. You know, and as you get better, you can move up. You beat people, they won't scoop you. And honestly, if people scoop you and you used up all your preferences, like screw them, man. Like say thanks for the action and beat them. I mean, like that's my attitude, you know, like you want to play, I appreciate the action and you know, let's play. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I think you should be able to figure out optimal head-to-head strats pretty easily. I hope that helps. Question 5 comes from Robbie Silber. He says, what advice do you have for selecting tournaments to play at low buy-ins? Don't have the bankroll to play high dollar tournaments, but most low dollar entries seem suboptimal. Yeah, so if I'm grinding a small roll, I still think that it's worth exploring the smaller field tournaments. Like can be as small as a 10-man or a 5-man. And if you guys don't know how to find those, they're not under featured. You just sort by the number of entries in the filter tab, you know, min 10, max 10 entries or whatever you'd want. I'd also try to find some single entry tournaments to play, even at low stakes. Just looking at the lobby this morning, the $5 nickel on DraftKings is a 3-entry max with 10K to first. The pylon is a $3 single entry, 5K to first. There's the daily dollar, $1 single entry, 500 to first. I think the key when grinding a small roll is to like have realistic expectations. You're not going to turn it into $1 million. You're not going to turn it into 500K. You're not going to turn it into 100K. You're probably not going to turn it into 50K. Set more realistic goals for yourself. And then there are a ton of tournaments worth playing, right? If your goal is, hey, I'm going to try to win 500 this football season. You know, I'm going to try to win 1,000 this football season. Then there's a ton of tournaments worth playing. I think, you know, the people that say, I want to win $1 million, play DFS, but my roll is $100, you know? So I'm going to play the Millie Maker 5 times and then they get pissed and they quit and they, you know, close their account because, you know, DraftKings is rigged or whatever other bullcrap that they want to come up with, you know? Set realistic goals and you'll be way, way, way better for you. Question 6 comes from Chris Amberley. You have 2 small kids, so obviously you don't sleep much and you start work Sundays in the wee hours of the morning. How much coffee do you consume on a typical NFL Sunday? Yeah, it's weird. I don't drink coffee. I never have. I don't think it tastes very good, number one. And like when I have tried it in the past, I didn't feel all that great when I did drink it. I don't think it's particularly good for your body. I don't think like putting all that caffeine in it. I don't really know. But anyways, so yeah, on Sunday, I really don't feel tired at all. I just love it so much. You know, there's so much to do. There's so many things to think about. I mean, it's the best time. And really, there's a ton of action. I mean, you know, oftentimes probably more action than I should have, which always gets me wired. You know, it's really hard to feel tired when you have a lot of action. There's that line from Mike McD in Rounders where he's telling his girl about staying up all night playing, how different it is from driving the truck all night. But anyways, yeah, I do feel tired at times during the week. Really try to do my most important or intense work first thing in the morning, like right after I take the kids to school. That's when I feel my best. That's when I feel my most productive. And yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way too. Question 7 comes from Mike Moore. He says, I'd love to be on Team Watch the Tape. What is the most efficient way to do so? I mean, Jesus, Mike, you want to be on Team Watch the Tape? Who in the world wants to be on that team? I guess what I'd say if you really want to be on that team is the NFL Game Pass is for sure the most efficient. The condensed stuff is so good. You can watch full games, every play of a game in 30 minutes. Just shows you how much crap there is in an NFL game. You can condense a game easily, still see every play down to 30 minutes. You can also go right to a play that you want to watch or a drive or whatever. So, you could spend your Sunday, your whole Monday and Tuesday watching those. Or what you could do is look at the data and the usage and I think be more efficient. Like, for example, Team Watch the Games wants to tell me how close Tyreke Hill was to a huge game. I know. I can look at his air yards. I can look at the next gen stats and see how much separation he had from defenders on his targets. I can look at his share of targets, etc. I get it. I get that he was close to a big game without watching the game. So I do think there's certainly some value in watching. I don't think spending 20 hours doing it is an efficient use of your time for DFS. Maybe for Dynasty or something, I could see it more. But, unless you're like really an NFL scout or really know what you're looking at, I guess that could be helpful. But so few of us do. Question 9 comes from Brandon Lindmeyer. He says, Adam, I am a pretty analytical person. However, there are times my gut sneaks up on me and says, play this guy. Do you ever have gut plays? If so, do you play them or do you ignore your gut? All the time, man, all the time. And I think in football, it's totally fine if it is based in good research and trying really hard and paying attention to all the news. I think it's totally fine. I've talked a ton on here about how median projections can't capture everything that goes into such a wide outcome, insanely variable game like football. Like you can't capture a guy's ceiling. Something I've focused on this year is really trying to not make floor plays. Making sure all the guys in my lineup have a legit path to 20 plus points. And sometimes that's in the gut, based on how you think a game will go or chemistry between X and Y player, etc. So yeah, in NBA DFS or MLB DFS, I think going with the gut is really bad a lot of the time, most of the time. But NFL is just so different, and I think that's part of what makes it so great and so popular, what makes fantasy football so popular. All right. That is going to do it for another edition of the Solo Pod. We will be back on Thursday night for the 3-man game-by-game breakdown with Al and Pete. For Jerry, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody. We are promoters at DraftKings and also avid fans. Our usernames are Adam Levitan, Al Smizzle, and CSU Ram 88. We may sometimes play on our personal accounts in the games that we offer advice on. Although we have expressed our personal view on the games and strategies in this podcast, they do not necessarily reflect the views of DraftKings, and we also may deploy different players and strategies than what we recommended in this podcast.